See you.
Edith is tweeting her appearance right now, so this is good. Real time.
Tweet it.
So I'm Drew Ionni of CDX. I run a digital transformation conference series called CDX, and I'm now part of the Techonomy family. So we'll tell you more about that later. You have a flight to catch, so we're gonna jump right in, right?
Yes.
So why don't you tell us just a bit about who you are, background, Proof of Capital. You just started the firm 2 weeks ago. Obviously, you've been at 500 startups for a while, and that's where I got to know you years ago. But tell us briefly who you are and what's going on at Proof of Capital, and we'll jump right in.
Yeah, my name is Edith Yang. We literally just launched a brand new fund called Proof of Capital 2 weeks ago, focusing on blockchain and privacy-related technology. Particular like fintech-related exchanges, custody, payment, remittances, not the crazy crypto. It's really about like true use cases. But we also think about what's going on with Facebook and just more aware for the whole world realizing, you know what, we really should own our own data. So we'll be investing in technology sort of related, so supporting the privacy-focused internet. So we're very excited about that.
That's great. And you're still involved with 500 Startups as an advisor on...
Yeah, I'm very supportive of 500 and during the times in 500. And also when I think I met you when I was at Dolphin Browser.
Yes, that's right.
It was at Chinese companies and we grew from 0 to 200 million installs. So I've been spending time with 500 and Dolphin, sort of back and forth between here and China. Been learning a lot. I love particular focus on like cross-border, bringing great U.S. technology to Asia, and vice versa. You're seeing more and more really interesting Chinese companies coming to the U.S. and grow. But obviously, there's a lot of really interesting challenges lately.
Well, that's a good place to jump in. So let's start at kind of a macro level in regards to sort of the state of business in China, which I suppose relates to just the state of China. Like there's a lot of, not just the tariffs, but ongoing concerns about intellectual property, just the perceived difficulty of doing business there. What's the state of business in China, particularly for people with a lens of looking to invest in China?
I think the Chinese economy certainly have slowed down quite a bit, and there's I'm not an economist, so obviously most of my knowledge is focused on more early stage startup and really just talking to friends locally. I think that the sentiment is a bit depressing. But having said that, there's still a lot of massive, big investment that is happening in China, which we sort of talked about earlier. I think a lot of my friends are in the tech space looking at in the past 12 to 18 months, sort of the most well-known IPO, for example, like Xiaomi, which the expectation at one point was 70, 80, maybe even 100 billion IPO, end up was about 47 billion, which got listed in Hong Kong in July last year. And there are a lot of really interesting IPOs that's going on. Tencent Music that also launched in the U.S., went public in the U.S. I think they are now worth about 25 billion, and I actually do think that they have a monopoly and they will do well. So in general, I think the IPO market sort of hit and miss. Some do well and some not up to expectations, or similar to what happened to Uber. But at the same time, China, just long term, right? I'm not going to go short all the stocks, but long term is still a huge market, right? What I just tweeted is just to set the stage is 1.4 billion in population. I think U.S. is about 330 million, is at least 4 times the population. Mobile internet population is about 819 million, and mobile payment is over 500 million. So if you think about this, right, just mobile payment users is already almost double the size of the U.S. You can see there are a lot of really creative business model and just the frequency. And it's still a huge market. So even though it may not have the double-digit growth that we see in the past, it's still a really, really exciting market.
And for most of the population, and particularly, say, younger consumers, maybe 35 and under, I mean, it's mobile first, right? The internet is mobile, right?
Absolutely. And in fact, not even 35 or below. Now I'm really spending a lot of time hanging out with my friends' kids and really wanted to learn from them, what do you use? So the number one app actually even scared Tencent is a app called Douyin. The U.S. version of it is called TikTok.
Yes.
I think if I remember correctly, and don't quote me on it, probably about 200 million.
That's right. It's about 200 million.
And some people actually ask me, do you own any of their shares? I'm like, no, so I have no relationship whatsoever. But what I've been super impressed is, as I talk to some literally teenager, I would sort of tease them, hey, I'm guessing you're spending at least a couple hours a day. And they were shaking their head. Is like a lot more. They actually go to sleep with it. So 5-6 hours per day that just watching super short, some of them are live, some of them pre-recorded video. They treat it like new TV.
Right.
So,
and it is gaining traction in the US in a big way too.
yeah, absolutely. So ByteDance, which is sort of the mother company in China that own Douyin, in the US is TikTok, and they also started with a news app called Toutiao. And all of them is at least 200 or 300 million MAU. So you can imagine, the time being spent on mobile is insane.
Right. In terms of, if I'm an investor and I want to invest in companies in China, say startups, right? You can invest in Alibaba or Tencent on the various exchanges that they're on. But if I want to invest in startups in China, is that difficult right now? Is it getting more difficult just because of the political climate, because of trade disputes, just because of the general relationship between, China and not just the U.S., but maybe Western markets? But how do I actually get in and invest in Chinese startups? Is it even possible for, say, U.S. investors?
It's absolutely possible if you think about it. VC funds like Sequoia, Matrix Partner, Qualcomm, sort of well-known funds in the U.S. been investing in China for a long time,
right.
And in the past, and which is still true today, a lot of the Chinese internet company, and if you just to start with, look at Alibaba, Tencent and Baidu.
Right.
Baidu and Alibaba both listed, in the U.S. and Tencent listed in Hong Kong. So a lot of the internet companies in China felt that the U.S. stock market have a better understanding what internet business is about. So you don't necessarily, there are many, many more are now listed within mainland soil in Shanghai or Shenzhen.
Right.
But the true giant still in many ways prefer to get listed.
Do they
in
list
the
in
US.
both? Are they listed on the SSE as well as maybe Hong Kong as well as New York?
It's possible to do both.
Yep.
And the Chinese government definitely would like to welcome some of these companies to come back and list, but there's its own challenge. So
Sure.
there's a lot of companies go back and forth.
And in terms of investing, if I want to invest in startups, is it, I could be an LP, a limited partner in your fund? Is that, or go, Sequoia, or how do I go about sort of, getting, investment capital into Chinese startups at a very sort of tactical level?
Yeah, so most of the VC fund in China, so usually set up US dollar fund and also RMB.
Yep.
So if it's super early stage, they usually may invest in the RMB fund. But a lot of times, even like for the US dollar fund is either a Cayman fund, it's not necessarily pure, completely Chinese US dollar fund. So it's actually very common, and I'm aware of many sort of US family office or big investor do actually invest in some of these Chinese funds to invest in Chinese startup. But having said that, if it's foreign, completely angel to invest in a Chinese entity, there's definitely some complicated things.
Right.
And a lot of the Chinese companies that I'm aware of, let's say my previous company for Dolphin Browser, the way that we set up was a Cayman entity, Chinese subsidiary, and then Hong Kong Woofy, like this, and then the US entity. So there's different setup that, for US investor to invest.
Right. So I want you to think of a question. I'm going to go to the audience here, and because we just have a little bit of time left. So I'll ask one last question before we do that. In terms of, I want to focus on AI just a little bit. So China has obviously come out and said they want to be number one in AI by I think it's 2030. How do you feel about, artificial intelligence in China, and is, from your perspective at a global level, is China really set up to dominate artificial intelligence, and why or why not? And is it still, sort of an open opportunity? I know you're investing in AI companies in China.
First off, I think the Chinese government certainly want to be the number one in AI. And have done a lot of different things to make sure that will be happening.
Right.
To start with, from the investment side, I think in 2016, there are articles that written about the $230 billion invested government-backed funds that supporting and the city levels, local district level to all in on startups,
Right.
Particular focus on AI. So in terms of capital, that's definitely not lack of that.
Yeah.
And the second area is that, okay, great, you wanted to build AI companies, you need talent. So we are talking about literally the Beida, sort of the Harvard or Tsinghua, which is the MIT of China. They're literally pumping scholarship, subsidies from Chinese government to support like growing talent. The third area, to have great AI companies, you certainly need data, and it's kind of scary, but in some way, like I can also explain why there is very little data privacy in China, and in fact, if you come to just Shenzhen, cross the river from Hong Kong, if you're a Chinese citizen and you have WeChat, and let's say you jaywalk, then you could actually get recognized by CCTV and immediately get a traffic ticket, like that fast, in less than a minute. So in that sense, yeah, the computer vision is that good.
Right.
Not like San Francisco. But beside the point, I think that there are a lot of things that the whole country, on top of that, there's the BAT and also iFlyTech, which is sort of the nuance of China.
Right.
All these companies are really pushing for it. Regardless of the generic NLP or voice or computer vision, is also very vertically driven AI as well. Because so if anybody haven't read it, I highly encourage Kai-Fu Lee, who's a friend and mentor. He wrote this book, that China AI Superpower,
Right.
Really well written, that really talk about not about what is going forward, but some of the history of why.
Absolutely.
And I think it's so educational for everybody to learn from.
It is. It's a great book. I've read it as well. So let's, we've got one right over here. Mike is coming to you. If you could also introduce yourself.
Hi, Scott Malcolmson. I just wanted to ask about the new Tech Innovation Board on the Shanghai Exchange, and how you think that'll, if at all, change in terms of the environment, in terms of non-Chinese investment into Chinese small tech companies?
So first off, I don't actively trade on the Chinese stock exchange, one. But having said that, I think there have been multiple conversations, just friends asking, hey, 60% of the company get listed on Shanghai or Shenzhen, 60% are state-owned enterprise. And the fact that they're state-owned enterprise, which means that there's Communist Party on the board and all that, what do you think about that? I think that is not, another thing also, there's a couple company that I'm aware of. One is called Win. I don't know how to actually spell it in English, but sort of like the Bloomberg terminal, but for Chinese company. These sort of software do exist. I'm not the user of it, but these sort of company actually been around for about 10 plus years. So I think more and more these sort of terminal is actually available. I don't know if they're in English, but there are, I think in general, the Chinese government wanted to welcome more foreign money to come in. And I think they will, even though it may not be complete transparent today, there's definitely a movement to make it more available for somebody like you and I to get more educated, so you can get more transparent data when you wanted to invest. But these sort of things takes time, unfortunately.
Got one over here. Well, sorry, they're doing one in the back. I should have time to get to you. Oh, no. It's a battle.
Okay.
There you go.
Oh, can I hold it? Thank you. Crypto in China has obviously been exploding with the ICO explosion, it was truly a gigantic opportunity. But now that security characteristics have crept into the Chinese market,
Yep.
It's beginning to slow down as much in China as it is in the US. So I'm curious, from the perspective of you putting money into new startups, especially crypto-based startups, where you see the opportunity for growing scalable startups as opposed to just technology capabilities, and how the Chinese market can subsist separately from the US market, because obviously US security regulations are inhibitive of Chinese growth as well.
Yeah, to start, so crypto is different from blockchain, and Chinese government have love-hate relationship. And really, really interesting. In February, March, President Xi actually have sort of the report for the year, and that actually talked about AI, autonomous car, and blockchain is sort of the future for the country. So now all of a sudden, after that, I'm not even making this up. You can go on YouTube and find these sort of the state-owned TV station. Immediately have these TV shows that educate the normal citizen. I actually watch it with my mom, and talking about blockchain 101. To start, this is the best thing happened since internet. And then second, definition of it, which I found it hilarious, is not about decentralization. Is about this intermediary. And the government is one giant node in the network. They didn't say that, but essentially that's what they're trying to imply. So you see BAT, the Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent, they all have sort of blockchain as a service, as enterprise offering. And there's many different level of government are using blockchain for trade finance, capturing health record or logistic, supply chain, all that is happening. But in terms of crypto, you are not legal to use RMB to buy any sort of crypto in China, which from an investment point of view is super interesting. One is, if I'm talking about finance, the crypto side of things, the top 10 crypto to crypto exchange in the world, top 3 are all Chinese, Binance, Huobi, OKEX, and the Koreans and some Russian and Japanese, and Coinbase is not even in top 10. Actually, BitMEX is out of Hong Kong. But beside the point, all these guys, because they are sort of tiptoeing to operate in China, so in many ways really good for me, because I'm really, really into helping Chinese companies to go overseas. And many of these are Chinese founders, but when they set up their entity is outside of China. So it could be Singapore, Switzerland, Hong Kong, Cayman. So in many cases, like our positioning, at least for our fund, is actively helping these entrepreneurs to, in the Chinese word, 出海, which is go overseas. And I think there will be more and more of these, not just the ByteDance of the world, but certainly for blockchain side of things.
We are at time. I'm sorry, and she has to catch a flight. So I can always talk to you
You're
for
so
another
awesome.
20 minutes, but I want to make sure you get your flight. But everyone, round of applause for